Thank you so much for joining today's event. I hope you can hear me. Hello, I hope you can hear me very well. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
we can.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining today's event. We shall be starting shortly as we wait for more colleagues to join. Thank you. I hope it was easy for you to get the link because I can see colleagues are requesting for the link to join. Maybe I can reshare the link with colleagues. Yeah, so welcome to today's webinar. And today's webinar is a refresher webinar about MPGs and focusing on two chapters. That is the National GAG Inventory chapter and also chapter on NDC tracking. So as we wait, we shall be starting just in a few minutes. Yes. So I can see colleagues are joining, so just we shall be starting when it's just like 5 minutes past. Thank you. So once again, welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is about refreshing ourselves on modalities, procedures, and guidelines for enhanced transparency framework, but specifically focusing on the chapter on national GAG inventories and also the NDC tracking chapter. So today's, the objective of this webinar is to refresh countries' understanding of the reporting requirements under Article 13 of the Paris Agreement as per the modalities, procedures, and guidelines, like I have mentioned, focusing on two chapters. That is the inventory chapter and NDC chapter. So today's agenda is very short, but with a lot of sharing. So we shall be having introduction to the webinar, interactive MPG pulse check, and then we shall have a group photo, and then we shall have a refresher on MPGs for JG inventory and NDC tracking chapters and the overall BTR guideline. And then we shall have an interactive quiz on MPGs to just refresh ourselves. And then we have some experience sharing on insights on how Rwanda was able to apply some of the MPGs for the national inventory for energy sector. And we shall have Miss Olive taking us through that. And then we shall have a short question and answer session. And then we shall have another experience sharing from Kenya, where we shall have our colleagues, the experts on Afolo, and also they are interested in sharing us some parts of NDC. We shall be hearing on how they were also able to apply their MPGs on that, but also part of the Afolo sector. So the lead experts on this will be Ms. Resa Ombi, and then we shall also have a question and answer session and a discussion, and then we shall have our closing feedback and evaluation. So without really wasting a lot of your time, I would like to request that we switch on our cameras and we take a photo. We usually miss photos when we take the photo at the end. So I will kindly request that we switch on our cameras and we give it a good smile. The year is still just 3 months. We smile to it so that we can have a good year. So I will request that we can switch on our cameras. Thank you for those of you who have switched on your cameras. We usually miss out on those photos, some of us, when we don't switch on our cameras. I will let you know when I finish taking the photos. Yeah, I'm taking some photos. Of course, some cameras are still off, but I managed to get your smile, some of you. Thank you so much. And I will take the last one now. Yeah, thank you so much for this session. So I will go ahead to the next session on the program, which is an interactive pulse check. It is a general pulse check, and I'll request that you go to your Mentimeter, you put mentimeter.com, and you use, or you can scan this code on your screen to be able to access that. I can actually put the Menti itself so that it's easy for us to access it. I'll directly put the Menti. Yes, I hope you can see my screen. Thank you. So the Menti code for today is 74565387. I will request that you join the Menti and or you scan the code on your screen. I can see some of you have already gone there. So let me wait for more people to join. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I can see we are a good number now. We shall go ahead. This is a simple one. When are you planning to submit your BTR1 or BTR2? So that we can know who is here and what stage are we. So you can just answer. I can see we have 0 responses. Yeah, this year. So I don't know which one. Okay, that is very encouraging. I hope we shall get more submission this year. Last year, up to last year for BTR1, we had only 12 countries in Anglophone Africa. And I hope this year we can have more both for BTR1 and BTR2. So I can see 2028, 2028, 2026. This is very encouraging that countries want to submit this year, and also those that have a plan of 2028. It's very good to know that there is already a long-term plan for this, which is a very good thing for countries to start planning for the process of BTR. Thank you so much for the feedback. I hope by December we'll register more than 12. So question 2, how have you conducted a data gap assessment for your BTR, let it be BTR1 or BTR2? Have you started? At what stage are you? Maybe you could tell us in your comment there, in your submission, maybe not yet started. I can see yes, some countries have started. Yes, not yet started, not yet deployed. Is it in plan? You can maybe also tell us if it's in plan. Not yet. We are waiting for technical review. Please don't wait for technical review. The cycle has to happen, but you should also start, think about it, and have a roadmap on how you can start, because the technical review just helps you to improve, but some of the elements will have to continue. It's the same process because the MPGs are not changing. That's why we have this refresher, but we have to keep doing progressive reporting and report better. So done. Okay, this is very encouraging. We can see that some countries have already done, others have a roadmap, others have not yet started. For those that have not yet started, make some roadmap, get some startup activities, because 2026 is just this year. What is the single biggest challenge in preparing your BTR that you have in your country? I know most of the time we have shared challenges, so this would really encourage not to blame your country or blame yourself, but to just know that you have shared responsibility, and that's why we have such sessions to learn from each other. So I can see some people are saying data availability, lack of data, NDC tracking, data gathering. Procurement takes a lot of time. This one is saying 6 months. Yeah, we shall one day have a discussion on how different countries are handling their procurement processes, and maybe if there is a way in which some of countries can learn from each other on how they organize themselves to approach the BTR process. I can see capacity gaps, data gaps. If you have some capacity gaps, I'm always here, write to me and tell me where you need some training. Sector turnover. This one is saying some of the experts are getting maybe big other jobs and leaving. Yes, modality at national level is not yet streamlined. As you can see, all the challenges are almost related to each other, and we shall be having some of the learning sessions to share and see how some of the countries have overcome. Yeah, I can see availability of funds. Yeah, this is very interesting for us to know. Data collection, maybe we should also have a session on data collection. Yeah, this is very interesting. So question number 4, which section of BTR is of the highest priority for your country? Kindly mute yourselves. Yeah, which section of BTR is a priority for your country? I would like to know which sections of BTR is a priority for your country. There's GHG inventory, NDC tracking. Okay, this one is saying chapter 1 and chapter 2. That's good. I can see most countries are prioritizing the mandatory chapters. Chapter 1, GHG inventory. I can see this one who is saying adaptation and NDC tracking. That's good. GHG inventory and NDC. I can see NDC and GHG inventory chapters are coming up very common. That is very interesting. Sorry. So yeah. So tracking of NDC. Yeah, the inventory. So I can see that 2 chapters are the most priority in Anglophone Africa, and I think we should build more capacity on that. Question 5, what type of support would be most helpful right now? Is it financial? Is it technical? Is it peer learning? Is it providing you with templates? What or any other that I might not have mentioned here? What type of support do you think would be the most helpful at this stage? Or peer learning? We have a peer learning coming up, hosted by one of the countries. If you are interested, please let me know, but countries are supposed to facilitate themselves. And then we have countries that are saying they need financial templates, peer learning, technical and financial capacity building, peer learning templates, peer learning and templates, okay. Okay. Then technical support in forestry inventory. Okay. Maybe for these that are specific, you could also write to me so we know the country that needs that kind of support. That would be interesting. So thank you so much. I think this was really interesting for all of us to know where countries are and what support they might need in the near future. And I think it was interesting to see that some of those are shared challenges. So I will go ahead to the next presentation, which is about the refresher on the 2 chapters, refresher on MPGs for the 2 chapters. So I hope everyone is seeing my presentation. So I will be taking you through this, and I want to just take it a bit slow so that we can all refresh. I know most of you are already conversant with this since you have been participating in the process. So some of the MPG requirements for national GHG inventories come right from Article 13 of the Paris Agreement, where the National Inventory Report of the GHG emissions requires that each party shall regularly provide information on the National Inventory Report of the anthropogenic emissions by sources and removals by sinks of greenhouse gases. And of course, Decision 5 of the CMA 3 guides guides operationalization of the MPGs, that is modalities, procedures, and guidelines for enhanced transparency of the Article 13. But specifically Decision 8 of CMA 1, Annex Chapter 1, provides for the national inventory document and the common reporting tables. And specifically, the National Inventory Report consists of the National Inventory Document and Common Reporting Tables, and it is expected that each party shall report that information that is referred to in from paragraph 39 to 46, recognizing the associated flexibilities provided for those developing country parties that need them in light of their capacities. So that is very, very important for us to note. And of course, Decision 5, CMA 3, also emphasizes the National Inventory Document Annex 5 that outlines the National Inventory Document in pursuit to the modalities, procedures, and guidelines. And within that decision, that's where common reporting tables were also adopted for this chapter. And also, they are supposed to be reported on electronically from the information that is developed from the National Inventory Reports. So this is very important for us to take note. And when it comes to the common reporting tables, I just wanted to emphasize that they are electronic in format, and they have information generated from the National Inventory Report. And they are a set of Excel workbooks, of course, 60 workbooks for each reported year. And these are 3 types of tables. There are those tables that have sectoral backgrounds, tables that need to fill data for this layer, and then sector report tables, which are usually green in cells, which are automatically generated as long as you fill as long as you fill the other parts. Then summary tables or cross-sectoral tables, which are also automatically generated. So this is just a highlight to take note of all that. And this is the general overview of how the National Inventory Report looks like. This is really a summary whereby one of the first parts, it's the national circumstances and institutional arrangements. And of course, countries should implement and maintain the institutional arrangements, and they shall report on these arrangements. That's why we have that chapter on institutional arrangements for the GHG. And some countries have over time improved reporting on these structures, depending on how they are strengthening their national institutional arrangements for the inventory. And then we have this chapter on, yes, kindly unmute yourself. We have this subsection on methods, which has different components or key elements, key category analysis, methodologies, parameters and data, QA/QC, time series, consistency and recalculations, uncertainty assessments, and assessment of completeness. I will be going through this a bit deeply, but not so much in detail. And then we have this part of matrices, where it's also a shall, that you shall use the global warming potentials from the assessment report 5 for purposes of standardization and comparability with other BTRs. And also, and you may also use in addition to other matrices. And then we also have reporting guidance on methods and cross-cutting, including sectors and gases and time series. I will just go a bit in detail of each of those elements. And like element 1 I mentioned, this was element 2. I have not gone into the institutional arrangements and national circumstances in this presentation, but I just wanted to emphasize these elements here that I have highlighted, especially because they have some flexibility provisions. So I'll start with methods and guidelines. As you can see, you can choose from these depending on the data availability in your country. You can choose we shall use the 2006 IPCC guidelines along with subsequent versions, including the refinement agreed upon by the CMA. All these depend on the data that you have to choose. For instance, if you don't have wetlands, you might not really use the wetland supplement. So it depends on what you have. And then when it comes to gases, of course, you shall choose the gases with flexibility for those developing countries. And then you can also use precursor gases, and you also may report on indirect carbon dioxide equivalent from atmospheric oxidation and all these other gases. But you can report on indirect nitrous oxide and other land agriculture and land use and land cover as memo items, or you can choose not to include them in the totals even when you have calculated their emissions. So it depends on what the country wants to report. because this is not a shall. And you also may report on other substances that may have impact on climate change in your country. When it comes to time series, it is a shall all through, as you can see. You can have to report on consistencies in time series from 1990 as a starting year, but of course there's flexibility. And then also shall report in the last year of reporting, not more than 2 years prior to the submission year. Yes, so we have element 2. We have key category analysis, which also has flexibility. I have highlighted the MPG paragraphs here for further reading, and it is a shall but with flexibility, but also time series and consistency recalculations. It is a should but with part of the shall, which needs that you perform recalculations in accordance with IPCC guidelines. But uncertainty assessment has some flexibility provisions in the paragraphs that I have highlighted, but it has mainly shall action. So you need to ensure that you conduct that. And then when it comes to element 3, completeness assessment, we have also elements of flexibility in this under paragraphs that I have indicated in here. I can see a hand, Francis.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Good afternoon.
Just wanted a bit of clarity. I think on the previous slide, on the time series and recalculations.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just wanted to find out. So since now that our inventory timelines are from 1990 to 2022, I think in the BTR1. So does this mean that as we move to BTR2, we'll need to do recalculations?
Yes, because you can see here. And see here they are saying time series and consistency recalculations, which is even a shall.
So the recalculations be done for which years? Is it just the previous year or all the way till 1990?
They have said from 1990.
You just do the
as a starting year. If you didn't have 1990 as a starting year, some countries did not have that. I think for you, you are saying because already you had. For some countries that did not have
information.
Yes, so for countries that did not have the starting year for reporting in the BTR was meant to be 1990. By the way, that's why for some countries, they could not submit their BTR1 because they did not have this minimum time series requirement of 1990 data as a starting year. So it depends on where the country is. If you already have, then you have.
All right. So you built your inventory time series from 1990 to 2022. So as
in your first BTR.
Yes. So as you start your BTR2, you start from 2022, you build up to 2024 for 2 years.
Yes, because it's saying shall last year reporting no more than 2 years prior to the submission year. So but you can see there is also flexibility. It depends also on the availability of data for that country. So I think some of these, as you can see, we need to go into those MPGs, understand them better, and also understand them in the context of national circumstances. Then you can apply flexibility accordingly.
All right. Noted.
But let me first finish the presentation so that we have more time for discussion. But thank you for that. Yes, so I had gone as far as here, I think. Yes. So I was going to this one. Yeah, thank you so much. So I was talking about this element 3. As you can see, it also has elements of flexibility. And so countries need to really understand where they can apply flexibility and make sure that they do not have to, maybe not to report thinking that they need to do all the elements in complete. So it's very important to know where you can apply flexibility depending on your capacities, but also the availability of data. And some of this can be discussed with technical experts at national level. Then there's the element of QA/QC, and as you can see from paragraph 34, paragraph 35, you can also apply flexibility and elaborate this if you have, it's nice when you have the QA/QC plan. And then you can also implement these general procedures, yeah, as a SHAR. So this is just in a nutshell on what parties are expected to report on, and I was just highlighting the flexibility provisions. Like I mentioned, I'm just trying to refresh ourselves for this part. There's really a lot of detail that if experts are working on it, it's extremely very important that they visit the different MPGs to get proper guidance based on the stage at which they are at national level. So I will go to part 2 of reporting provisions in the NDC in the context of the information necessary to track progress made in implementing and achieving NDC. And of course, this includes the electronically reporting information under the common tabular format tables. So to just highlight, information necessary to track progress made in implementing and achieving NDC has how many? Has 7 sections that are required both in narrative and tabular formats. And as you can see, we have the part on national circumstances and institutional arrangements. I will highlight a bit in detail in the next slides, but to just let you know that for some, there's also flexibility that you can use the part that is already being used under JG inventory if you don't have another structure, but countries are encouraged to start having structures for institutional arrangements under NDC so that it's easy to track for the following reporting. Then we have description of parties NDC under Article 4 of the Paris Agreement as one of the sections in this chapter. And parties are expected to describe their targets and the parameters that have been used. Yes. And then part C is about information necessary to track progress. Goal of this section is to outline how a country tracks its progress when they are meeting their NDC. And it involves, of course, detailing the measure of tracking, which is indicator, and sharing the most recent data related to these indicators. And then part D is about mitigation policies, actions and measures, actions and plans. The section presents the policies, actions and plans in place to mitigate the climate change. So the goal of this section is to highlight the different measures that are being taken on by a country to reduce the GHG emissions, and of course, the other effectiveness of measures to ensure that maybe you can have measures, the effectiveness here, they mean if some of those measures are quantifiable, it would also be very important to report about them under this section, especially strategies and those actions. Then when it comes to E, summary of GHG emissions and removals. This section is meant that you provide a summary of a country GHG emissions, and it is usually well linked with the first chapter. So that's why it is very important to encourage countries that both the NDC experts work well with the GHG experts so that they are able to harmonize this information and report better a document that speaks to each other with level of consistency. Then part F, it looks at projections of JG emissions and removals, and mainly it focuses on future of JG emissions and removals based on the current mitigation policies and measures. This usually helps the country to identify potential future trajectory of a country's emissions, and this part has a provision for flexibility. Some countries have not done projections, so there is flexibility. I'll also be going a little detail in it for purposes of refreshing ourselves. But there is also this last part on other information where parties are expected to provide any other additional information that helps understand progress in implementing and achieving their NDC. This could include any unique initiatives, challenges, or plans that they had not maybe considered in their previous NDC, but they are very relevant on how their NDC and ambitions are met. Yeah, so just to highlight for this part, national circumstances and institutional arrangement for the NDC chapter, a country is required to really provide some of the elements on the government structure, population profile, geographical profile, economic profile, climate profile, in the context of how this affects the JG emissions and removals over time. And then also you provide information on institutional arrangements in place to track the progress made in implementing and achieving the NDC targets. And this one can be, even if you are participating in the internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, you can also provide that information. But also if there have been any changes since the last part of submission of your first BTR or the third or the fourth, you have to give some updates. And then also information on legal and institutional administrative and procedural arrangements for domestic implementation, including on how you are monitoring, reporting, and archiving, and also engaging stakeholders on all these elements is very important. And this is why you could also bring in elements of cross-cutting issues like how you are engaging gender, different elements of social aspects. Yeah, it's provided for here. And I just wanted to emphasize, since we are refreshing ourselves on different MPG paragraphs, this can be guided under paragraphs from 59 to 63. So part B of the section on NDC is includes updates on providing description of your NDC against which progress will be tracked. Of course, it includes these key elements, and paragraph 64 clearly guides this. And this one also relates to the common tabular format tables. So like I mentioned, chapter 1 and chapter 2 are all supposed to be presented both in narrative and tabular format. So this part is also has a corresponding table which is appendix, and it is required that you present that too. And part C, it's about information necessary to track progress, and it provides that each country shall or party shall identify indicators. They can be qualitative, quantitative, or even those indicators relevant to NDC to track progress on how you're implementing your NDC. So this information is supposed to be presented in narrative, but also in the CTF, it relates to CTF table 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the guidance can be got from paragraph 64, 5 to 79. When it comes to mitigation policies, measures, actions, and plans, including with those mitigation co-benefits resulting from adaptation actions and economic diversification plans related to implementing and achieving NDC, it is expected that each party provide information in this regard and also support for how this is being implemented. And it is supposed to be presented in terms of the name, description, objectives of each action, type of instrument or regulatory or economic and any other instrument, then the status in terms of is it planned, was it adopted, or is it being implemented, or has it been implemented? And then the sectors in terms of the GHG sectors affected, then gases affected, and then the start year of implementation, and then implementing entity. This is supposed to be presented in both tables and narrative. Under Table 5, CTF Table 5, it is guided by paragraphs from 80 to 90, but it is also has some flexibility provision where estimates of expected and achieved GHG emission reductions are supposed to be. If you have not estimated them, you have flexibility. Those expected or achieved. For some countries, they can have achieved, but they have not quantified in terms of GHG emissions. So there's flexibility on that. When it comes to summary of GHG inventory, GHG emissions and removals, each party shall submit this as a standalone in form of a table, and this table is extracted from the inventory part, and it is presented as Table 6, and it is guided by paragraph 91. So Part F is about projections, and as you can see, each party shall report on projection for emissions and removals with the flexibility provisions guided by paragraph 92, 95, and 102. So it is required that each party provides information with measures as a shall, which is a shall, and then with additional measures, it's you may, and also without measures, it's also a may, but projection shall begin from the most recent year in the party's inventory and report and extend at least to 15 years and beyond the next year ending 0. So that's why you saw the other side, it was starting from 1990. That's why they standardized that so that it can keep ending year 0. Then each party should provide information on methodology used to develop projections. In terms of models, approaches, key assumptions, parameters, it could even be the rate of GDP, the population. So all of these details help to understand how the country has done their projections. Maybe if there has been any change in methodology since the latest BTR, that should also be reported. Then assumptions on policies and measures included in with measures and without with additional measures. If included sensitivity analysis for projection, that should also be provided. And you can read about this from MPGs paragraph 92 to 102. But as you may be aware, this information relates well with CTF tables 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Where they have these, some of these tables have with measures, others have additional measures, and so on and so forth. So this is the last part for NDC tracking chapter, whereby other information, each party may provide any other information relevant to tracking progress made in implementing and achieving their NDC under Article 4 of the Paris Agreement. And this is mainly guided by paragraph 103. So I would like to ask, okay, just this is a summary of the different tables and appendices I was referring to in the different sections for purposes of highlighting. So like I mentioned in my presentation, that I would also provide the general overview of how the BTR outline can look like. The sections are all here, in the national inventory, the NDC climate change adaptation impacts, and then financial technology and transfer and capacity building, additional information when national communication and BTR are submitted jointly is also provided for here. And then flexibility provisions are also presented in the BTR, and then improvements in reporting, and then the other annexes, also including technical annex for RED, if the country has participated in RED and it has prepared. Globally, I think countries, there are 7 countries that submitted technical annexes for RED under their first BTR, but I think in Anglophone Africa, we don't have any, but there are some countries that have started planning, and we shall be having a session to provide more guidance on that. If your country has participated in RED, I think that would be a very interesting webinar for you. Then we have CRT for electronic reporting as one of the annexes, CTF electronic reporting for NDC tracking as also one of the annexes, but also the financial technical capacity and support is also one of the CTF that is also submitted as an annex, and also information relating to parties' participation in cooperative approaches under Article 6. So thank you so much for listening to me. And I will wait if we have any questions, or if we do not have. This was just a refresher to just encourage us to use our MPGs as we are developing our first or even BTR2. So thank you so much. I'm sorry, when I was presenting, I could not see. I see many hands up. Francis, is this the second hand or the first? Okay, I see Shields.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a little contribution. Following Francis, I can't remember who talked about, asked question about recalculation. Now, there are instances whereby you do have to do the entire recalculation. Last in BTR1, we moved from we were using AR4 and we switched to AR5. So we had to do that was for the waste sector. We had to do the entire recalculation because we're moving to a different methodology. The same thing happened for the rack sector because before we were just using HFCs. In general, we disaggregated them to various types of HFCs, different blends. Each blend have got their separate global warming potential. So again, we had to do the entire recalculation. So basically, if you're doing any change in methodology, you do have to recalculate everything from 1990 up to now.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
That was my contribution. And then I do have a question, which is a bugbear of mine. When it comes to transitioning, we are transitioning from one NDC to another. My understanding is that probably by the time we submit BTR2, we would have already submit BTR NDC 3.0. Our period of reporting being up to 2022, which is in the NDC 2.0 period. But as we project, we're going into NDC 3.0 territories. So it's I think I don't know if Seychelles is the only country at this crossroad, but I think it would be worth having a good look at how you handle this situation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will take another question. I will get back to that. Next, I don't know, Francis, if your hand is still up, maybe I will ask Muyanje.
Good afternoon, Sheila. I just need a bit of clarity on the national circumstances and institutional arrangement. Does each section, is it a must that each section should have its own institutional arrangement and national circumstances, or you can just do one section to cater for all the sections? Because the reason why I'm asking this question is I noticed when we were doing that clinic for the TER, as Zambia, for our BTR, we stated our national circumstances and institutional arrangement at the beginning. Then for the rest of the chapters, we were just going straight to where the section is supposed to start from, knowing that we have already stated our institutional arrangement and national circumstances at the beginning. But then there was a query that came which requested for the national circumstances and institutional arrangement for the adaptation chapter. So I was wondering if we are supposed to indicate that information for each respective chapter, or we can just indicate it once.
Okay, thank you for that question. I will get back to you. There's this one hand, Sergio, kindly unmute.
Okay, good afternoon. I would like to ask one question, and that is to highlight the difference between the greenhouse gas inventory and the national inventory document in the BTR. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Francis, is your hand still up, or I just go ahead with these questions? So I will go ahead with these questions. So I will start with the one on transition.
Francis's hand is not up. I think he already asked his question. You say so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for really asking these questions, and also for providing more information, Shields from the Seychelles. I will, and I think what you really added, that is a typical example on how you are applying MPGs based on the national circumstances. But I will go to your concern. I think it's not really like a question about transiting NDC. So when you look at the MPGs, the guidelines, we are, at the moment, we have, if you are updated NDC had targets up to 2030. In these NDCs, you're supposed to be tracking your targets up to 2030, unless maybe your NDC had targets up to 2028 and you have done new projections, and then now you have new data sets for up to 2030, of which is the recommended for global stocktake according to the MPGs. So in terms of NDC 3.0, of course, the communication, I'm not very sure, but for most of the NDC 3.0 for countries, they have targets beyond 2030. So meaning that in our BTR1, we are tracking updated NDC updated NDC that have targets up to 2030. So, and as you may be aware, if you put an indicator, you have to track that indicator up to the end of your reporting period to the target of 2030. So you don't start to the target beyond 2030 before you report up to the end for your target of up to 2030. If your NDC 3.0 is expected, according to the different NDCs I have seen, they have targets beyond 2030. I hope that one is a bit clear. Then in terms of the other question from Ms. Muyanje about national circumstances and institutional arrangements, for all the chapters now in the BTR, MPGs require, I think I even stated them, they require the chapters on national circumstances and institutional arrangements. And if you go in detail of the requirements according to the MPG guidance, the information is not the same. For instance, it is expected that under the institutional arrangements for your GAG inventory, you state how the institution that support data collection, that support QA/QC, all that part of inventory is organized. But when you look at NDC tracking, the guidance is looking at how are you, who is implementing, how are you implementing, collecting data and tracking the implementation of your actions. So the institution arrangement is supposed to be provided for as mandatory chapters for each of the sections, including adaptation and other chapters, because it is very important, apart from just MPGs, for purposes of tracking to have those institutions well aligned, but also MPGs provide that you report on those as different institutions, but there is flexibility only under NDC that only if they are the same institutional structures, you still report on the same. Then if you still report on the same, even if they are the same, or you can reference them, but also you need to really go to the MPG and be very sure, because it's mandatory that you provide that information, because the guidance is slightly different. And then the last part on the GG inventory and the national inventory document. According to the MPGs, the national inventory document, the national inventory report consists of the national inventory document. So the national inventory document is part of the national inventory report. And when you look at the different elements I presented about the national inventory report, some of the elements were part of the national inventory document. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope that one is clear. So if we don't have any other question, thank you for asking. I saw in the chat, I think Susan was responding. Yeah, thank you so much, Susan. I would like to take this opportunity now to invite the next speaker. No, we have an interactive quiz before we can listen to the speaker. So you will allow me to take you back to Menti. Let me project the Menti code. Sorry. So we have a quiz, and I will be projecting the quiz shortly. So I hope you can see my presentation. It is still processing, but it's coming. So this is the instruction to the quiz. So you can scan the QR code, but you can also go to Menti and enter this code 75094081. This is a quiz, so it would be nice that we join the quiz about the topic that we have had to just refresh ourselves on the MPGs. As you can see, there are several areas that need to be discussed and learn from peers on how they're applying some of the MPGs. for purposes of learning. So I will request that we join this quiz, www.menti.com, and it will request for the code 75. The code is 7509 4081. I do not see anyone join. Kindly join. Kindly join according to what I'm presenting. I don't know if you are seeing my presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we are seeing your presentation and
Yeah, kindly join
Yes,
the
we are
meeting.
seeing.
Thank you. Yes, so thank you. Maybe I'll start the quiz and see if there are people who have joined, but I don't see anyone.
I've joined, but nothing happens.
Maybe something. So it is refusing to.
I think you need to start it so that people will be able to respond to the question.
Okay. I don't know why it is not starting. Maybe I need to give you okay. Apologies about that. I think it's technical something, so I need to start the presentation. Okay. How about now? Is it starting? Is it starting now from your side?
No, it's not yet
No.
starting. Still at the
No,
same place.
Maybe
Nothing
we
started.
jump. It has started. You would allow me, maybe I share another one, because I don't know why it is not starting. As you can see, start presentation. Okay, I think you will allow me to start another one. Let me share another code. That one has refused to cooperate. Apologies about that. So this one is telling me that it's fine. And this is the new code. Kindly enter this code. Apologies about that. I think the other one, I don't know what has happened. It was not cooperating, that page. I hope this one cooperates.
Same thing. That looks like it.
Yeah, we are still stuck in this first screen.
Maybe, can you see
All
this
right,
one
something's
now?
happening.
Now I can see it's on because I
Wait
can
for
see you. Okay, sorry about that. We have lost some time, but I think it's necessary that we go through it. So this is, yeah, now this is it. Apologies about that. Thank you for teaching me these technical things. I appreciate. I don't know what had happened. So we have a few questions. There are 7 questions, so we shall start without wasting a lot of your time. The first question is the usual one. in the context of ETF, what does MPG stand for? So I want to still see if we have colleagues here who cannot tell us what MPGs is. So I hope this one, everyone should be able to pass it. Just have a few seconds down, Alan. You can see only one person does not know. There are many. So MPGs is modalities, procedures, and guidelines. It's not measures, policies, and goals. It's not modalities, processes, and guidelines. It's procedures and guidelines that were approved under decision, the decision 5 that I mentioned in my presentation. So question 2 is about, I can see the team is ready. You will have to complete the sentence with the correct word. So shall provide an inventory, a national inventory report of anthropogenic emissions by sources and removals by sinks of GHG inventory. So we have 3 options: all parties, developed country parties, developing country parties. So you have to choose, is it by all parties or developed country parties or developing country parties that provide the national inventory report? Thank you so much. At least you have understood now that all parties must, it is a shall, must provide this NIR report because it is mandatory reporting requirements. So our question 3 is the National Inventory Report consists of the National Inventory document and common reporting tables. Is this true or false? I think everyone is going to pass this one. Let's see how it goes. We have a few minutes down. Is this true or false? Very good. At least someone had asked about this, so thank you. And now that everyone has understood it, so the inventory report consists of the inventory document. So our 4th question, we start now, we're all ready. Developing countries that need flexibility in light of their capacities may only apply flexibility specifically identified in MPGs. Let me repeat, is this true or false? Because it's about developing countries that need flexibility in light of their capacities may only apply flexibility specifically identified in the MPGs. Is this true or false?
Oh,
Someone is cheating for us. Okay. So it is very true. They also have to apply this flexibility according to MPGs. Our next question, which statement is correct when reporting in BTR? Parties must use CTF tables, that is common tabular formats, for reporting information on I will show the correct answer when it's time, so kindly continue answering. So we are remaining with a few people, then I can show the correct answer. Maybe 17 out of 26. When we are 20, I will show the correct answer. What statement is correct when reporting to BTRs? Parties must use CTFs for reporting information on, support mobilized and received GHG inventory information, track progress made in implementing and achieving NDC. You can choose 2, yeah. You can choose the right ones. So I'm showing the answer now. So you can use the CTF tables for both support mobilized and received, but also under NDC chapter. Not on NDC, not on JG inventory. So our next question, 5 out of 7, is under National Inventory Report, the elements on national circumstances and institutional arrangements have flexibility provisions. Is this true or false? Is this true or false? A few minutes down, let's see. Everyone has voted. Wow. There are no flexibility for provisions for institutional arrangements, so it is a shall. You have to report about them. So I think, Madam Muyanja, you have had. Our second last question is ready. Under National Inventory Report, elements on gases and time series have flexibility provision. Is this true or false? Is this true or false? Is this true or false? We have a few minutes down the lane. It is true. They have flexibility provisions, that is gases and time series. So you can apply based on national circumstances and guided by the MPGs. So our last question, and then we can establish the winner. We are all ready. Let's see. Under ETF, which statement is correct? Under enhanced transparency reporting, which statement is correct? Only developed countries report information on NDCs. All parties shall report on NDC tracking. Reporting information on NDC tracking is only voluntary for LDCs and small island developing states. Which statement is correct? Let's see if we all know this answer. It would be good that we all get it right. Time down, and then we see. Thank you. At least the majority have got it. So let's see who is taking the lead. We have Mimi, we have Iko, we have Botho, we have South Africa. It's a tie. Wow, that is awesome. So Iki has tied with South Africa, with Murisa, with Mercy and Mimi. Congratulations, winners. This has been so interesting. I've never seen a tie on quiz, and you have really made it. Thank you so much, all the winners. It has been interesting. Yeah. So we are going to go to our next session, and our next session we shall be hearing, sharing from experience from Rwanda, and I hope our colleague Olive is here with us. Olive, kindly unmute yourself and take on the floor.
Yes, please.
Yes, kindly share and take on the floor. Thank you so much.
Okay. I don't have a right to share. Sheila? Hello?
Oh, let me work on it quickly. Maybe you can share it on my, I thought I had opened settings for everyone.
Okay. Should I share to you and then
Yeah, kindly share on my email, but I thought I had done that. I don't know why it keeps. Colleagues, sorry about that delay. Sometimes I don't know what happens, but I had set it that everyone should have access. I hope it comes through quickly. Kindly share on email.
yes, but my email can take a few minutes, but okay.
Let me try my best.
I have sent.
Yes, I'm trying to open it. Susan, if she's here, she can also open, maybe help me open the chat, the sharing option from her side. Susan, is it possible to open? Maybe it would be faster.
Thank you. Eula.
So are you seeing my presentation? I hope you have shared the right one. Yeah, I think it's the one that I'm presenting. It's trying to open. Yeah, it is here. So, colleagues, I hope you can see what I'm presenting here. It's in PDF, so I think
Oh,
it's fine. I think colleagues will be able to see. I'll try to make it full screen.
sorry, it was. Or should I?
So it's okay. You
repeat
can
it
go
again?
ahead.
Okay.
No, it's
Uh,
okay.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Olive Yuksenge. I work at Rwanda Environment Management Authority. I'm GHG compiler for the sector of energy and IPPU. And thank you, Sheila, for taking us through MPGs, most of the time we use them unknowingly, just like we know that you have to do this, but without further knowledge. I'm going to share Rwanda's experience on applying MPGs, but I'll be focusing on the energy sector. Next, please. Yes, those are outlines for this presentation, which I not take too much to go through it, since we are going to review each one by one. It's energy resources overview. Of course, the emission from energy sector comes for the how our energy mix and energy balance works. Our energy, primary energy, supplied by biomass for 86.3. That is the energy used for mostly remote area, where for household they use of firewood are 83.3%. Charcoal has 15, and also we have Lake Kivu, where we extract methane gas, and then that's used for energy generation. Our energy comprised by renewable and non-renewable, where for renewable energy we have fuel as the other country, and then charcoal, biogas, crop waste. We have also non-renewable fuel for LPG. Then have diesel, residue fuel oil, natural gas, mostly which that's for methane. And then for electricity use, households, they use 51%, where industry as a growing sector in the country use 42, and then public sector 6%, and then for next, please. Yes, that was a summary of energy use, energy demand, in general energy mix in Rwanda as per 2022 as the last inventory submission. So coming to focusing to the GHG inventory on the sector of energy. As you can see on this chart, Rwanda has established the GHG inventory MRV framework. That framework, it includes all sectors of GHG, and then the key institution that is involved in the data collection, data activity data for inventory, quality assurance, and other needed information to do GHG compilation. So as having UNFCCC focal point sitting at Turema, it gives the authority to overall responsibility of developing the national GHG inventory, of course, with the Ministry of Environment providing the oversight. The institutional arrangement for GHG inventory, it is comprised of committee working group, which we called National NDC MRV Technical Working Committee, but they don't only focus on NDC, but other climate change reporting obligations. They provide information and data and the data at sectorial level, and then we compile it at national level. Under NDC MRV Technical Committee is where we have National Inventory Working Group, and it is divided into 4 groups as they are outlined as IPCC guidelines. We have Energy Sector Working Group, we have IPPU Sector Working Group, and we have Aforo Sector Working Group, and Waste Sector Working Group. So focusing for energy, mostly we have the people from Rwanda Energy Group, the people from Ministry of Infrastructure, because They are the one in planning for energy use, energy demand, and they are one in charge of energy balance. So, and we also have private sectors. Like in energy, we have those those private partners that are in the energy sector, IPPU, the same, Afro and West. So next, please. So giving the overview of energy emissions as for 2023, because the last inventory we have is the one we submitted for BTR1, and the time series was 2006 to 2022. The reason why we didn't start from 1990 as per the MPG guidelines, we use that flexibility of where we have a consistent time series. So before 2006, yes, there's some sector and some categories that we can have information from that year, but also most of them they are not consistent. So we choose to have where we know the data will be consistent for the time series. And also, as per the MPG guidelines, the reporting year, the reference year should be prior 2 years for reporting year. So since we have submitted our BTR for 2024, then our reference year was 2022. So again, we have to report 7 gases for GHG inventory, but mainly for the energy sector, due to the activities in that sector. For us, we have CO2, methane, nitrous oxide. Also, we have reported the precursors. As for CO2, as for 2022, we have 2,340 CO2 gigagram, CO2 equivalent. For methane, 690 gigagram CO2 equivalent, and nitrous oxide, we have 171.7. So mostly for the CO2, it comes for fuel, combustion, and transport, while methane are coming from biomass burning, charcoal production dominant. Putting in mind the CO2 for biomass were reported under memo, and international aviation was also reported under international bunkers. So they were not, for CO2, it was not, we didn't include it to the total national emissions. Next, please. So the methodology that we have applied, of course, we compared with the compliance of MPGs. So firstly, we have applied 2006 IPCC guidelines, and also we used 2019 refinement where it was applicable. And then we chose the tier to use according to the availability of national data based on the quality of that data and the emission factor. We have emphasized to go on the higher tier, mostly for the key categories, like for transport, because it's among of the first, let me say, the first 10 key categories of our inventory. We have tried to use tier 2. And then also for the biomass, we have conducted our emission factor. And then those one were applied plus the emission factors from IPCC guidelines. So the calculation approach, of course, we used a sectorial approach for energy, and also we did a reference approach for quality control to check the emission that we have by using sectorial approach are equivalent to the emission we have using the reference approach. As per MPG guidelines, for energy also we have computed the precursor gases, NOx, CO, NVOC, and then for that we have estimated them using European Monitoring and Evaluation Program. Then we want to use the global warming potential for fifth IPCC assessment report, as it is a recommendation. Next, please. Yes, where the activity data came from. For energy industry, the data were from Rwanda Energy Group, National Institute for Statistics of Rwanda. Here they have they produce what we call yearly statistical book. So most of the information got from there, but also from Rwanda Energy Group. As per the institutional arrangement for GHG inventory, for technical committee, we have a focal point for each sector from each institution. Those people, they are the one to provide the data whenever we are going to start computing or compiling the inventory. And then we use technical experts plus the staff from Rwanda Environment Management Authority. They see it, they validate, they go through the provided data, and then where there's uncertainties or outliers, they request the clarification from the technical person who provided information. And then after gathering all activity that are needed, we go ahead to validate it with extended stakeholders, and then we start compiling the inventory. So for transport, the data used were from Rwanda Revenue Authority because they are in charge of imports. So they are the one who provide the data for number of cars, but also there's survey that have conducted in previous years to know the kilometers coverage and the fuel consumption for each type of car. And for aviation, we have Rwanda Civil Aviation Authority. They are the one who provide Jet 1A fuel consumption. As for residential, also we took the information from ECV household survey. That is the survey that I've done by National Institute of Statistics. As for commercial, we got information also from Rwanda Energy Group, Rwanda Utility Regulatory Authority. Also, they provide the data regarding to the commercial. Next, please. So after having the data and then comparison, as for 2022, the highest emitter category we have under energy sector was transport, having 57% of the total emission of energy, followed by other sector where there is commercial household, so contributed by for 24%, followed by energy industry, counted for 10% of the total emission for energy sector. And also the last was manufacturing construction. So we didn't compute the fugitive emission from the methane extraction because we couldn't have the emission factor, but as for now, we have it. That means for this coming BTR2, we will be able to compute the fugitive emission, and then that will take us back to do recalculation, as you have done also recalculation for BTR1 from the information we got after BUR, that there's some emission factors that we computed in the country-specific data. So that required us to go back and do recalculation as it is a request by for MPGs. Next, please. Yes, that is the trend of sorry for the title. I could have changed to 2006 to 2022 for energy sector. Methane for 2022 to 2010, it was dominated. That was due to biomass combustion. And then the 2011 to 2022, the CO2 has risen due to transport sector and vehicle fleet growth. You know that our population is increasing, the urban is increasing. So we have new vehicle fleet, which is growing fast. So that imposes the rise of CO2. And then for the methane, it was rise from 196 gigagram to almost 394. For charcoal rising, it was a triplet from 2002 to 2022. Next, please. Yes, we have conducted QA and QC, as we have QA and QC plan, which have to be modified because the one we have that we have seen, we are lacking some information. So what we have done is reference approach to the sectorial approach. We verified before we compute emission, of course, activity data verification. We hold a workshop, and also we cross-checked with the data from Rwanda Revenue Authority, and then charcoal production. We have improved. As per now, those data, they are somehow tricky to get because we don't have institution in charge of recording the charcoal production. We have some individual people who produce charcoal. We have cooperatives, but those individual ones, it's kind hard to track the energy used and how efficient their furnaces are. So, but at least for this one, we have tried to get information from the cooperatives. It also still needs improvement. How can we get information from individual people who produce charcoals? So, for planned improvement for energy industry, that's what I've been saying, that we are trying to see in which modality we can do, and we can work with those people by engaging ministry in charge of commercial and mining, because sometimes they got information, and the local government also, they are the one that provide the license for harvesting forests. So we are trying to find a way we can engage those people and then see if we can get accurate information from them. Also have planned, if we got CBIT2, and thanks to the first CBIT, because we were able to have to develop some country-specific emission factor, and then we want to develop other country-specific emission factor, mostly based on the key categories. Also, further improvement in manufacturing are needed. Also, like the way we'll code the data, mostly for private sectors. If I say for industry, for manufacturing, still, we go industry by industry, and sometimes it delays our work. Sometimes we don't get all the data we want on time. That leads us to use the available data, mostly for the secondary data, instead having the specific data for each industry, all a disaggregated one, but efficient. So for transport, we still have a problem because the survey that have done, it was for 2018. So we want to conduct a new survey for coverage distance, for fuel consumption by each type of car. As for aviation, it's easy. They know the fuel they sell for domestic. That was what we have in the plan. Next, please. And I think, yeah, thank you.
This is the last one. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I know. Thank you for listening to our experience. We still have a long way to go, but also we appreciate the effort that made at least to be where we are now. Because if you compare the inventories that have done before, like inventory for TNC, now it's better. Like there's a lot of improvement, and we continue to improve our work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Olive. I think you have some question in the chat. Lamin Malong is asking, how do you gather data? What are the challenges and how were you able to overcome the challenges? Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, it is still a problem, a challenge, but also there's where we came and where we are. What we have tried to do in the previous inventories, we used external consultants who went institution by institution to requesting the data, and then they use it, they produce a report, and then what we validated was a report. But we find out there is some inconsistency in providing data. So that way we established a technical committee for government institutions and the public sector. So some information that is in the mandate of some ministries or institution, we have those technical people who provide it. As per now, for BTR2, we also have established a system which we call the greenhouse gas inventory activity data, where we provided a credential, we created the account for every technical working committee member that's in charge of, let me say, some category in inventory. They'll be providing annual data according to what they implement in their respective institution. So after getting those data, we see it with extended. If I say extended, now we have a person, let's say example, we have a focal person in the Rwanda Energy Group, but there's a private sectors and the private electricity plants. So when we are going to validate, we invite those one who gave the data, and then with those other people who are in the sector but not in charge of providing information. So we cross-check the data provided, and then after validation is when we start comparing inventory. Plus, we still have a challenge, as I said. There's some sectors or category that needs surveys. That means those information, the data needed, doesn't fall on their work. So what we want to improve, as we have conducted a survey for transport, we want to continue that, like to conduct survey frequently for the data we need for inventory, but also want to engage National Institute for Statistics Rwanda. In their survey they do, we design an indicator that will help us to get information that we feed inventory whenever they are conducting survey. That's what we plan to do in the future.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Is there anyone who has another question? Any question so far? I can see a question in the chat. Someone is asking, as biomass is used in large proportion, is biomass used in large proportion in Rwanda? I understand that CO2 from biomass combustion is not to be accounted. However, I'm not sure about that. About the methane.
Most of the rural residential use biomass that make it big, but also even though CO2 does not count on the national inventory, we still count methane. Yes, methane is counted in the biomass, I mean in the other sector. Which we call other sector, we count methane.
Okay. So I think that is it. If you don't have any other questions, I will request that. How do you get the biomass data? Someone is asking.
Yes, as I have said, there is this survey that's being conducted yearly by the National Statistics. So what they do, we have indicator where they count the people use biomass, and then they try to find amount of the wood that they use in daily life. So those information is what feed us when we are conducting or compiling an inventory. So the data from National Statistics.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think she has responded to all the questions. Yeah, thank you. So I will now request that we listen from Kenya. I hope they will be able to project because I've tried to do something. Risa, kindly take the floor.
Thank you, Sheila. Can you hear me? Please confirm.
Yeah, yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Rosa, kindly
Can
go
you hear
ahead.
me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for yielding the floor to Kenya. My name is Anglophone. I work with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry in Kenya within the Climate Change Directorate as a Senior Climate Change Officer. And the Climate Change Directorate is the national lead agency on matters climate change coordinations at the national level. And we are also in charge of coordinating the NDC development and submission to the NFCC Secretariat. And for this particular session, I'll just walk us through Kenya's experience for the NDC, which is chapter 2. I don't have a presentation, so I'll just share our experience with regards to how we're able to handle that particular chapter, the challenges you experienced, and how we handle them, and what was the feedback. I'll also call upon my colleague from the afforestation, agriculture, forestry, and land use sector, but majorly the LULUCF, to give a brief highlight of how that sector handled. Either he may talk about the GHG inventory side, or he may choose to comment on what I'll highlight, but just walk us through our experience. So thank you, Sheila, for walking us through the various components of chapter 2. And we know that it highlights the description of the NDC, and then the section of the structured summary, and then the section of the policies and measures, right? So I'll walk us through most of the 3 components in that particular regard. So with regards to the description of the NDC, this if the elements that are required for report.
Your audio is not very, very consistent. Maybe you need to get closer to your microphone because the sentences are not so clear.
Is my internet fluctuating or is it my audio?
Okay, now we can hear you.
It was the internet.
Sorry about that.
Can I proceed?
Yeah, please proceed. Now you're clear.
Thank you. So with regards to the description of Kenya's NDC subchapter in the chapter 2 of the NDC tracking, we found that there's key for strategic alignment with the key elements required during reporting. So our experience with this NDC tracking chapter is really anchored on how you design an NDC. And for us, it was easy to feel it. It was a very seamless exercise because the foresight of the elements required to fill this particular section was already embedded in our NDC. So as parties, I know the NDCs we're tracking right now already being implemented, so there's no way to change it. But it's very key that as you develop your NDC, you take note of the elements required in reporting so that whenever you have to come now to fill whatever elements required in accordance with the MPGs, then it's just a matter of referring and picking the information and putting it wherever it's required to be filled. So for us, the process was very seamless because of that strategic alignment with the reporting elements within the sub-chapter description of the NDCs. Then when you move to the structured summary, this is where the rubber meets the road, because now you have to compare different sectors and you have to fill in data, including the LULUCF sector and excluding the LULUCF sector. And in case you've participated in any cooperative approach and Articles of the Paris Agreement, then you also have to discount that from your progress because you have already transferred, or it's assumed that you'll transfer or you have transferred those tons of CO2 equivalent to your counterparts NDC or GHG inventory. So for this particular chapter, there was a technical challenge that was experienced. Why? We recognize that we have challenges in terms of data and in terms of repository, in terms of reporting from the specific sectors. So we recognize that NDC implementation period started in 2021 January, and the NDC was submitted in 2020. But when you're coming to consolidate the data, we found out that we have data for 2020, but you don't have data for 2021, and we had data for 2022. So we had the gap in terms of building our narrative from where we were at in 2020 and 2022 because we didn't have data for 2021. And this was a very significant limitation without specifying at what point were you in 2021 for you to declare your NDC progress in that particular section. So since we had that challenge and the reviewers also pointed it out, like, why were you not able to have data for 2021 in terms of NDC tracking? And I believe that since we had that challenge onward before, we may face the same difficulties in constructing a continuous narrative in that particular regard to demonstrate exactly how we are now able to say that we're on track with our 2030 targets. And this experience is clear diagnostic of the inadequacies And I believe we share similar experiences with other countries in terms of our national data collection and tracking systems. And it's a gap that I believe the JD inventory, if Alex will speak to it, the JD inventory team will now have to prioritize to resolve so that we have consistency in terms of data collection in all years across board. Then when I move to the policies and measures section within the same chapter, where you track the prioritized mitigation activities or mitigation policies and actions and measures, the sectors, yes, prioritized the specific PAMs that I would like to report progress on. And this is across all the sectors of the IPCC. What we found is that for the energy sector, it was very easy because they have data. So when you look at our BTR in the PAMs table, the energy sector has all the data from what the policy is all the way to emission reductions attributed to that particular policy or measure or action. But when it comes to other sectors, now including the AFOLU sector, we find that yes, the AFOLU sector took a target. For example, I'll speak to forestry. For example, I'll restore 100 hectares of a particular degraded ecosystem. But when you go back to when that target was taken, we don't have a baseline of where we started from. So when you come to now 2022, for example, or now 2024, we don't know where that 100,000 hectares began from. So when you indicate the progress achieved, but don't have the baseline data, it becomes very hard or very difficult to build the narrative of how that progress has been achieved for you to indicate the progress you've indicated in the PAMS table. And another thing we had challenges with is some PAMs indicated in the or prioritized by the sectors, not the same PAMs that were implemented over the 2 years or 4 years we're looking at. For example, for the waste sector, I'm just giving a random example. They had indicated that they will implement the waste NAMA. But when it comes to actual implementation, the ministry or the sector focus on another thing that's not related to that waste NAMA. So when it comes to attributing the PAMs to the progress, to the attribution of the GHG emission reductions that's related to that particular action, we find that there's no correlation. So it becomes difficult to indicate that PAM within the NDC tracking chapter if the sector did not implement that particular policy or measure altogether. So in terms of prioritization, we found that there was a disconnect between what they communicated in NDC and what they're actually implementing, and therefore tracking progress towards those policy actions and measures becomes very difficult. And the primary obstacle here now becomes if a sector indicated that they will implement a certain measure or policy or action, they've not, then what next? And yet you have prioritized that action within your BTI. That means you have to report it all the way to 2030. So will that be a continuous inconsistency when the reviewers will have come in your subsequent BTIs? And I have no answer to that at this point. Perhaps we may be able to look at that again as a country when you're developing this second BTR in that particular regard. But when I look at now the cross-cutting challenges we experience, now beyond the sectoral issues that I mentioned, the barriers we've experienced will be anchored on our institutional arrangements, our institutional challenges that you may have to address by ensuring that you have robust MRV systems that either developed by the sectors or just a national one. In Kenya, we don't have one yet, but some sectors have gone beyond and over and above to ensure that they have data, case in point, the energy sector. But if the other sectors experience the challenges of having the data collection and repository, then that becomes a continuous challenge. And a path forward now towards BTR2 that we're going to submit now this year. Yeah, this year. Achievements, I believe, will be how have we moved from the challenges we experienced in the first BTR in terms of ensuring consistency and having the baseline data, therefore having a strong narrative in improving of where you are at in terms of NDC implementation. We have learned that while our policy alignment is strong, ability to track implementation, particularly for the land sector, depends on very robust baseline documentation and formalized data pipelines. And we are now using these lessons to strengthen the national MRV system. It may not be very like well established, but we are moving from a point of inadequacy to a very improved area right now as we move towards developing the national MRV system. And I believe even more so, the development of the National Carbon Registry by Kenya recently will also help us or will be a step forward in terms of ensuring that there's a repository of data, given that not all mitigation actions will be participating in carbon markets, but there will be at least a record of if you're not participating in carbon markets, then you will be in the MRV system. And if you're participating in carbon markets, you'll be both in the MRV system and the National Carbon Registry. That strengthens the data collection system. So we envision that we'll bridge these gaps and provide a very or a more enhanced BTR2 in this particular regard, having experienced the lessons and having heard from the BTR review team on where we need to improve. And that is also embedded in our improvements plan across the BTR. That includes the National GHG Inventory section and also the NDC implementation and achievement chapter. So I'll hand it over to my colleague, Alex, if you could be able to highlight a few things that you could speak to within the LULUCF sector, and then we'll come back with any question. Brian? Am I still being heard? Sheila?
Yes, I can hear you. And you mean Alex Bryan? He's here.
Yes, Alex Bryan. Yes.
Alex Bryan, please speak. We cannot hear you.
So, hi all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Good afternoon from those who are in this time zone, and good morning if there's anyone who is in that time zone. My name is Alex Bryan from Kenya. I work for the State Department for Forestry under the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, specifically on climate change related issues and RED+. Thank you very much, Sheila, for this platform and Reza. However, I was not in the program. I've been ambushed, but I will try my best to give a snap view of LULUCF in terms of reporting for BTAR1. What were the experiences and the challenges I experienced? And also I'm going to speak on preparation in terms of BTR2, specifically for the greenhouse gas inventory for our sector. For BTR1, we had different technical working groups for various sectors. And personally, I was in the LULUCF technical working group, reporting for our emissions and removals associated to our sector, which was land use change and forestry. For our activity data that we used a methodology known as sample-based area estimation method, where we had a number of sample points that were interpreted assessing the land cover and land use within our nation, and also identifying where the changes are and the times and the period in which the changes happened. Now, unfortunately, I know we are required to report from 1990 to 2022, but unfortunately, due to resources and data availability, we were only able to report from 2000 to 2022. And this basically was one of the areas of improvement for BTR2, and that is something that we are working on. But apart from that, we used land approach 2. This means we are able to identify the year of change and the type of change. For our carbon stock estimation, we used stock difference method. That is carbon stock at time 1 and carbon stock at time 2. And with that, we are able to come up with the emissions and removals estimation. Now, I would like to note that we used a sort of tier 2 methodology, whereby for our emission factors, we relied on country-specific emission factors and also IPCC default emission factors. This is for classes that we had data. We used country-specific emission factors, and that is basically the forestry subcategories. The country has been collecting through a pilot NFI. They have been collecting data on biomass, and therefore data was readily available. But for these other subclasses such as cropland, wetlands, and grasslands, we had to use IPCC defaults since we had no data. The gases that we considered during BTR1 was CO2 only, and that means we had to apply some flexibility for these other non-CO2 gases, and this is because we did not have enough data for that process. For carbon pools that we considered, we only considered 3 carbon pools, that is above ground biomass, below ground biomass, and soil organic carbon. Now, for soil organic carbon, we used IPCC default, so that basically we did not have any data on country specific in regards to soil organic carbon, and therefore we decided to use default factors, and this was due to the use of IPCC software, which we were able to practically able to use the default factors. For our sector, we had some flexibilities that we applied in terms of gases reported and uncertainties reporting. And this was attributed to one, inadequate data, and also issues of capacity, especially for uncertainty analysis. So we had to report that qualitatively rather than quantitatively. But we have made much progress as a sector, and I'm so sure that in the next BTR2, we are going to have reporting on uncertainties. So I'm trying to be as brief as possible. So I'm just pointing out different points. Now, something that Kenya we can be proud of is that we used the IPCC software to estimate our emissions for our sector, which is very commendable for us, since I think we are one or not the only country that was able to model or estimate our emissions through the IPCC software. And this also facilitated us to generate CRTs, so that was not a problem for us. And even under review, you would see that the CRTs and the NID, that is the inventory document, were really corresponding. The figures and the summary of information, that is qualitatively and quantitatively, they were both in tally. However, we experienced some challenges One of them was data gaps. We had not collected data from 1990 to 2000, and that really affected the general estimates of our emissions, of the nation's emissions. And that is something that we have been looking into as we are preparing for BTR2. And now we are collecting data from 1990 all the way to 2024. I think that is something that we have solved. We did not report on, okay, we reported on soil organic carbon, but that was not attributed to different climatic zones and different agroecological systems in Kenya. So that is something that we are considering so that we can have different soil attributes for different agroecological zones in Kenya. And through that, we cease to have, we cease to use emission factors, IPCC default emission factors, and then engage the country specific non-CO2 gases. That is something that we are working on, especially on burning of biomass and other activities. So that is one of the areas that we are considering for BTR2. And one of the challenges also that we experienced is data on harvested wood products. We tried to use data from FAOSTAT to estimate removals from harvested wood products. But then that was a challenge because the output that we got did not really show the exact position of Kenya in terms of removals based on that pool. So we decided not to report on that. And this is also something that we are looking into, given the fact that we still do not have data on harvested wood products. But that is something that we need to embark on as a country and see how we can get access or collect that data. Burning of biomass. This is something that was highlighted by technical expert review team. And we are working with agencies who can give us reliable data to use for burning of biomass. But this is subject to availability of data. So basically, Kenya, we managed to report our first BTR, and in terms of greenhouse gas inventory, and we're expecting that in the next BTR2, we are able to enhance our data and estimate more, estimate our emissions in a completeness manner, and also inclusive of all the recommendations that we are given during the technical expert review team. I really hope that I have not missed anything. And if I've missed, maybe you can just raise a question and I'll be able to answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you so much, Risa, for giving us a highlight. I hope you will be able to just put some notes onto one slide so that colleagues can benefit from what you have done. I know that we have short time, but I think this was an interesting discussion, and I will just go to these few questions so that you can answer, and then we shall be winding up the session on this webinar. So there is this question about how do you get your biomass data?
Okay, maybe I can respond to that. How do we get our biomass data? One is through allometric equations. So now, before you use your allometric equations, there is what you collect in the field. That is measurements, the diameter at breast height, the dBH. So when you're able to measure the above ground biomass, the biomass itself, then you're able to convert through allometric equations biomass to your carbon stock. So, and which is basically it's half, we assume half of what your tree biomass is carbon stock. So, and after that, you are able to convert your carbon stock to CO2 equivalent, and through that, you're able to get your emission factors. Now, that is for above ground biomass, but we have shoot to root ratios that are used. So for us, for example, we were able to use IPCC default shoot to root ratios, and through that, we are able to convert what a certain fraction of above ground biomass is below ground biomass, and then you're able to add them together. And through that, you're able to get your total biomass, which then reflects through other conversion formulas to carbon stock and then to emission factors. I really hope I've answered the question. And before you respond,
Thank you.
Taylor,
Yes.
And we rely heavily on we have pilot national forest inventories. That is where we have permanent sample plots where we collect our above ground biomass. So we have different sample plots in different agroecological zones, and these sample plots are the ones that we usually assess our above ground biomass. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I hope you have answered the questions. I think they were asking if you have like the National Forestry Inventory, and I think you have really answered. So which year was the forest inventory taken? So someone is also asking, because I was going to ask you, so do you really regularly do your inventory, and what is the time period between the last forest inventory that you did? But someone is also asking the same question.
So remember, having a forest inventory requires a lot of resources, and for you to do that regularly, that means you have adequate resources to do that. That means it's like we are conducting a census, but for the forestry sector. So that is not something that we have been able to do regularly. So we only collected data once, and that is the data that we use. So that means when we are having stock difference, basically is not at time 1 and time 2. It's basically at class 1 to class 2, and that is how we get the stock difference. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. But I think the other question in the chat was specifically on which year was the forestry inventory undertaken, the last forest inventory that you have.
Yes. Now I was avoiding that question because we do not have a specific year that we collected all the data, because even as per today, we are also relying on data that was collected last year. So it depends on the data availability and the research that has been done by various institutions. So we have data collected in different years, but collected as guided in the national guidelines for collecting data for forest inventories.
I think that is very clear, and your colleague Marceline has really clarified more, like you have permanent sample plots where you usually collect the different data, which is, I think, clear. Thank you so much, Kenya, for sharing. I hope you will be able to give us a few points so that you can share with colleagues, because as you can see, we are over time, but because colleagues are interested in this discussion, they have been able to stay and to listen to you. So it would be a great pleasure if you can just put a few lines, and we are sorry for the last minute communication from the focal point. I think maybe he was so busy to inform you. Apologies. Next time I'll follow up closely to ensure that you get the information in time. So thank you so much, colleagues who have been able to stay with us. I think if we don't have any other question, I will not go beyond half time of the time we are in. I would like to request that I project the last feedback Menti, which helps us to do better, to improve better, to know what kind of topics we can discuss in the coming sessions, so that we can have very meaningful and improved reporting, enhanced transparency reporting. So I would like you to go to your Mentimeter and put this code and or scan this QR code on your screen. And then we can just answer just there like 2-3 questions, and then we shall close the session. Thank you. So the Menti code is 66749060. And I will not really take much of your time because I can see colleagues have really joined. How relevant was this webinar for your work? That is the first question. Someone is saying extremely relevant. Yeah, I think everyone is agreeing that it was relevant, very relevant. We really appreciate that you have been able to keep with us, and also appreciate countries that have been willing to participate in sharing what they have done and how they have done. And we shall be calling upon more countries to share. So please be willing to participate. And also, if you have something that is a good practice and you would want to share, I'm always available. The next question is, how satisfied are you with this network meeting? I meant to say this webinar. Sorry about that. I'm very satisfied. Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Which transparency topics are you interested in that you think we should? MRV, NDC tracking. Which other topics are you interested in? NDC tracking. I think there were actually interesting elements that came in from the submission of Kenya. I think I will have to organize a session, and so that we can prepare to have a meaningful discussion about some of the elements and challenges that she raised, and maybe also to share with how other countries have been able to overcome those challenges. I can see countries also want some topics on support, adaptation, finance, tracking finance. Yeah, that is very important. Also, policy actions, measures and plans. And then waste in GHG. Yes, we shall be having in-country exchanges, but virtually. I wish the one who is interested in waste can reach out to me so that I can put them in that cohort. We shall be having those peer-to-peer demonstrations online, which might not allow everyone, because some countries might not be comfortable to share their data, but they will be demonstrating the GHG inventory, use of IPC software for specific sectors. So the one who has put waste can reach out to me, and I put them in that cohort. Do you have any other comments you would like to share? Okay, thank you. Continue to support the network. Yeah, thank you so much. Also, without you, there is no way I can support. So we mutually exist. Thank you for the insights. Please share the presentations and slides. Yes, I will share them. And please always visit our platform. There's a lot of information. And if you have no access, register to be a member of the platform so that you can always access all these things that we share, even in regional meetings that you might not be able to attend as a person. Yeah, so I think this was the last slide from my side, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you so much for joining us today. Always visit our climate transparency platform where you can get more information, but we appreciate your feedback, and always to go on beyond the normal time to remain in this kind of webinars. We really appreciate. So thank you so much. So I'm going to reach out to you, Jalo, about the waste sector. Please send me an email, then we can start the conversation. I think we can unmute and say bye-bye to each other. Most of us have been listening. Would be glad to hear your voice. Thank you so much. Say bye to colleagues. I know sometimes you take long without seeing them, so it would be nice to say goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. Goodbye to colleagues.
Goodbye. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.